Altitude. The altitude of a place is its height above sea level.
The air was thin at such a high altitude on the mountain.
Coastline. A coastline is the outline of a country's coast.
He noticed that most of the cities in Australia are on the coastline.
Deter. To deter means to prevent or discourage someone from doing something.
Icy roads deter people from driving their cars.
Devise. To devise something means to have an idea or plan about it in the mind.
The thieves devised a plan to steal the diamonds.
Expertise. Expertise is the knowledge and skills to do something well.
John has a lot of advertising expertise. He can sell anything.
Fracture. A fracture is a crack or break in something.
Don't stand on that leg because there is a fracture. It might get worse.
Impair. To impair something means to damage it or make it worse.
Drinking coffee impairs my ability to go to sleep.
Implement. To implement something means to ensure that what has been planned is done.
The school decided to implement a new teaching strategy.
Indigenous. If something is indigenous, it is originally from or native to a place.
Tomatoes are indigenous to the Americas.
Insight. Insight is a deep and accurate understanding of something.
The physics textbook gave the student new insight about gravity.
Limb. A limb is a large branch on a tree.
The monkey sat on the tree limb and enjoyed a piece of fruit.
Migraine. A migraine is a painful headache that makes one feel sick.
My sister gets a migraine every time she has a lot of stress.
Optimism. Optimism is the feeling of being hopeful about the future or success of something.
The mother had optimism about her children's futures.
Peculiar. When something is peculiar, it is strange, sometimes in a bad way.
That peculiar smell coming from the kitchen reminds me of rotten eggs.
Proficient. When a person is proficient at something, they can do it well.
Secretaries are proficient at typing quickly.
Quest. A quest is a long and difficult search for something.
The treasure hunter went on a quest to find an ancient gold necklace.
Ridge. A ridge is a long, narrow piece of raised land.
The brown bear walked along the edge of the mountain ridge.
Spouse. A spouse is the person to whom someone is married.
I live in a home with my spouse and our 2 children.
Thrust. To thrust means to push or move something quickly with a lot of force.
The boxer thrust his fist into the punching bag.
Tolerate. To tolerate something means to be able to accept it even when it is unpleasant.
When you are in a hurry, it can be hard to tolerate traffic signals.
Aquatic. If a plant or animal is aquatic, it lives or grows in water.
The dolphin is an aquatic mammal.
Biosphere. The biosphere is the Earth's surface and atmosphere where there are living things.
Birds, trees, and worms all thrive in the biosphere.
Bizarre. When something is bizarre, it is very strange.
My bizarre dreams make no sense to me when I'm awake.
Celsius. Celsius is a scale for measuring temperature.
Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius.
Coarse. If something is coarse, that means it has a rough texture.
The coarse sweater made my skin itch.
Companion. A companion is a person that someone spends a lot of time with.
I always walk to school with my companion Frank.
Digest. To digest means to swallow food and pass it through the body.
Allow some time for food to be digested before going swimming.
Duration. The duration of an event is the time during which it happens.
The girls watch television for the duration of the evening.
Ecology. Ecology is the study of the environment and living things.
We study ecology to learn how to help improve the earth.
Feat. A feat is an impressive or difficult achievement or action.
The elephant standing up on one leg was a feat.
Infinite. If something is infinite, it has no limit or end.
Many scientists believe that the universe is infinite.
Nucleus. The nucleus is the central part of an atom or cell.
The nucleus is made up of many tiny particles.
Parasite. A parasite is a tiny animal or plant that attaches to another animal to get food.
The sick dog was covered in parasites.
Prominent. When something is prominent, it is important and well known.
Queen Victoria was a prominent person in history.
Repetitive. When something is repetitive, it is repeated many times and becomes boring.
Working on an assembly line making cars every day is a repetitive job.
Reproductive. If something is reproductive, it has to do with a living thing producing young.
The reproductive system of a plant is simple.
Temperate. When a place is temperate, it never gets too hot or cold.
In Peru, the weather is temperate and rarely gets too hot or cold.
Tolerance. Tolerance is the ability to accept something painful or unpleasant.
Boxers have a high tolerance for pain.
Undergo. To undergo an action means to have it happen to you.
The cancer patient undergoes treatments twice a week.
Vulnerable. When someone is vulnerable, they are weak and without protection.
He felt very vulnerable when he was stranded in the desert.
Adept. If someone is adept at something, they are very good at doing it.
The carpenter is very adept at building houses.
Barren. If land is barren, it has no plants growing on it.
People cannot farm in barren lands.
Ceramic. If something is ceramic, it is made of baked clay.
The house's roof was made of ceramic tiles.
Culinary. If something is culinary, it is related to cooking.
I gained culinary skills after working in a restaurant for many years.
Dense. If something is dense, it has a lot of things close together.
I easily became lost in the dense forest.
Dignity. Dignity is the ability to be calm and worthy of respect.
When his company went out of business, he faced it with dignity.
Dominate. To dominate someone or something is to control them.
The loud man dominated the conversation.
Edible. If something is edible, you can eat it.
We learn about edible plants when we go camping.
Hostile. If someone is hostile, they are angry and unfriendly.
We were happy to move away from our hostile neighbor.
Intake. Your intake of food is the amount of food you take into your body.
The doctor said I needed to increase my intake of fruits and vegetables.
Likewise. If someone does something likewise, they do the same thing as someone else.
If Joe is staying away from school to go swimming, I want to do likewise.
Malnutrition. Malnutrition is the condition of not getting enough nutrients.
After eating only a meager amount of food, she suffered from malnutrition.
Medication. Medication is medicine or drugs given to people who are sick.
The doctor gave me medication to treat my illness.
Misconception. A misconception is a wrong idea about something.
People once believed the misconception that the earth is flat.
Obscure. If something is obscure, it is not well known.
The old man travels the world in search of obscure books.
Oppress. To oppress someone means to rule over them in a cruel and unfair way.
Free speech had been oppressed in his country.
Peel. To peel fruits and vegetables is to remove their skin.
We peeled the apple before eating it.
Prescription. A prescription is permission from a doctor to get medicine.
The doctor gave me a prescription for my medication.
Respirator. A respirator is a machine that helps weak or sick people breathe.
The man needed a respirator to breathe.
Strive. To strive is to struggle to achieve something.
People who strive to succeed often do.
Archaic. If something is archaic, it is very old or outdated.
To be competitive, we must update our archaic equipment.
Benevolent. If someone is benevolent, they are kind and generous.
My father was a benevolent man and gave lots of money to charity.
Brass. Brass is a metal that is used to make musical instruments and ornaments.
Brass is used to make musical instruments like trumpets.
Capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system where private companies make goods for profit.
Most industries in the world today are based on capitalism.
Component. A component is a part of a larger machine.
Computers have many different components, so they are complicated to build.
Dependence. Dependence is a situation in which somebody relies on something else.
Young children have a dependence on their parents.
Diminish. To diminish means to reduce or get smaller.
As the economy got worse, my savings diminished.
Drawback. A drawback is a disadvantage.
The drawback of having a car is that it is very expensive to maintain.
Fad. A fad is something that is popular for a short time.
The hula hoop was a fad for a few years, but it soon lost its popularity.
Impose. To impose means to interrupt or force your ideas on other people.
He imposes on his wife every morning by expecting her to make breakfast.
Managerial. Managerial describes something related to a manager or management.
Nancy has a managerial position at the bank.
Medieval. If something is medieval, it comes from the period between 650 and 1500 CE.
We visited a castle that was built during medieval times.
Obsolete. If something is obsolete, it is not used anymore because something better exists.
Since computers became inexpensive, typewriters have become obsolete.
Peninsula. A peninsula is a large piece of land that is surrounded by the sea on three sides.
The state of Florida is an example of a peninsula.
Prestige. If a person has prestige, people admire or respect them.
The young actress gained much prestige after she won an award.
Proportion. A proportion is an amount that shows the link between the parts and the whole.
Only a small proportion of the people in this town actually work here.
Radical. If something is radical, it is very new or different.
The president is planning to make some radical changes to the law.
Refute. To refute something means to prove that it is false or incorrect.
The bank manager has refuted the claims that he lied to his customers.
Spectacular. If something is spectacular, it looks or sounds very impressive.
There was a spectacular fireworks display in the park at New Year.
Weave. To weave means to make cloth using horizontal and vertical threads.
We saw a woman weave a blanket on our vacation to South America.
Accountant. An accountant is a person whose job is to keep financial accounts.
The accountant helped me keep track of my money.
Capitalist. A capitalist is a business person who invests in trade and industry for profit.
The capitalist invested in a factory that made wheat into cereal.
Contempt. Contempt is the feeling of having no respect for something.
The judge had contempt for the wicked criminal.
Dedicate. To dedicate oneself to something means to put a lot of time and effort into it.
The nun dedicated herself to helping people in need.
Ditch. A ditch is a narrow hole cut into the ground by a road or a field.
When the car slid off of the road, it fell into the ditch.
Enterprise. An enterprise is a company or business.
My father owns an advertising enterprise.
exquisite. When something is exquisite, it is very beautiful or pleasant.
The artist made exquisite watercolor paintings.
Finance. To finance someone or something means to provide money for them.
The government financed the scientists' experiments with new weapons.
Indifferent. When someone is indifferent toward something, they have a lack of interest in it.
Lisa is indifferent toward school. She doesn't care what her final grades are.
Irrigate. To irrigate means to supply water to land so that crops can grow.
In dry climates, it is important to irrigate fields of crops.
Maximize. To maximize something means to make it biggest in size or amount.
Businesses try to maximize their profits.
Monetary. When something is monetary, it relates to money.
A strong monetary policy is important for a country to be successful.
Precaution. A precaution is an action that is meant to stop something bad from happening.
As a precaution, you should put on a heavy coat before going out in cold weather.
Preliminary. Preliminary describes something that happens before a more important event.
The runners must do well in the preliminary races to qualify for the final race.
Saturate. To saturate something means to completely soak it with a liquid.
The sponge was saturated with soapy water and dripped all over the floor.
Simplicity. The simplicity of something is the fact that it is easy to do or understand.
We were able to find the house thanks to the simplicity of the directions.
Sow. To sow seeds means to plant them in the ground.
He always sows his garden seeds in the springtime.
Soy. Soy is a food made from soybeans, such as flour or butter.
Soy can be made into tofu, sauce, and also milk.
Spade. A spade is a tool used for digging.
The gardener used her spade to make a hole for the seed.
Upcoming. When something is upcoming, that means it will happen in the near future.
The kids were worried about their upcoming exam.